In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to craft and build the perfect sales process. You are listening to Entrepreneur Hour. I'm your host, CMH. Here, we give you proven business advice to grow your company, teach you what peak performers do to stay on top of their game and live a healthy and happy life, plus how you can gain and keep an edge on your market. Welcome to the show. What up, fam? Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, don't forget, you guys, check out Startup U Mastermind. Startup U Mastermind is my free private community specifically for you, the entrepreneur, to connect with other like-minded entrepreneurs. We're also going to give you actionable insights, guidance, wisdom, all to help you in your business journey. Go to getstartupu.com. That's getstartupu, like university.com, and I will see you guys in there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show, and if you can, do me a quick favor, leave me a review for the show. If you've listened to the show for a while and you think it is warranted, or if you want to wait till the end, if you want to listen to this full episode, if you're new to the show, wait till the end. But if you feel like it's warranted, I would love a 5-star review. It tells other podcast players that this is a show that's worth listening to, and it really helps us rank and continue to reach other entrepreneurs. Helps us really keep this show free and to continue to do what we do. So I would greatly appreciate it. It helps more than you know. Okay, so today's conversation with Hilmon Sorey, really interesting guy, more so in the tech space versus the online business space. So we talk, at first we talk a little bit about some higher level things as it relates to sales and the capacity that he does sales. However, one of the things I think you're going to find is fascinating is towards the mid to later parts of the conversation, we actually it's gonna creep you out to a degree if you're in the online space, just how similar it is. Sales is sales. It doesn't matter in what capacity, in what setting. It doesn't matter. It's human to human interaction. And so a lot of the insight that he provides, the company that he's with is called Closed Loop. And that's what they help people do, is build out their sales processes. So I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. Some of it, you're going to be shocked how much it's going to translate into whatever business it is that you do. So they do big things in the world. This is what they do. They help people with their sales. So I think you're going to get tremendous value. Starting out the new year, one of the best things you can do is really lock in on your sales process. I think if all of us could just increase our conversions just a hair, we don't need as many opportunities as we think we do, right? It's more about conversions than it is just volume of opportunities and leads. And sometimes I think we get that wrong. So definitely enjoy this one. Really interesting chat with my friend Hilmon Sorey, and I'll see you guys on the backside.
Please hold for a very important message.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to Entrepreneur Hour Podcast and Entrepreneur Hour TV, where we create superhuman entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to talk to somebody that's going to introduce maybe some new concepts, things we've not heard about, like sales enablement, right? So most of our audience, you guys are here, you're either really early in your journey or you're in the online space. We're seeing that happen a lot, albeit it's not all of you, right? I don't want to alienate anybody here, but that's what we're seeing predominantly from our audience. So there might be some terms you hear today that you've not heard before. However, I will say this. There's a lot of things that come up that will benefit you that maybe you haven't been introduced to, that maybe you can borrow elements from, even though it doesn't necessarily immediately think that, or you immediately think that it won't apply to your specific business or your specific industry. There's always something to be learned from other people's perspective. So without further ado, Hilmon Sorey is my guest today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here, CMH.
Awesome, man. So tell me, we always start the show this way. Give us your quick elevator pitch, who you are, what's the work you do, and what got you into doing it.
Yeah, so again, I'm Hilmon Sorey. I am the co-founder of 3 companies. One is Closed Loop Consulting, which is a management consulting, sales enablement, and marketing firm based in San Francisco. We work with companies that range from Fortune 500 like Lenovo and Salesforce to really fast growth companies like SurveyMonkey and Box, all the way down to a couple folks in their garage who are trying to figure it all out and climb the ranks and the rungs of that ladder. Second piece is Closed Loop University, which is an online B2B sales training university for any roles inside of a company that range from an individual contributor all the way up to somebody in an executive function, sales enablement people, the word that you mentioned, all the way through. We have some marketing folks that hop in there for some interesting pieces as well. And then the last piece of our little mini empire is a angel fund called Closed Loop Capital, where we invest in seed stage companies looking towards technology growth. So fair warning, Hilmon, you will immediately, just for that last part, you're going to get blown up from this episode. Did you hear the gulp as I said it?
Yeah, as soon
But
as
you know
anybody
what?
hears you're involved with,
We welcome that. Deal flow is the key to successful angel investing. So bring
yeah,
it on.
yeah. So I'm going to anticipate it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look out for those pitch decks. All right, so let's get into this because we've got some topics that my team found to be very interesting about the work that you do.
Okay.
So we're going to focus a little bit on sales for the time being. So you have the 5 secrets of a sales coach, but it looks like coach is an acronym. So what are those? Kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, so the 5 secrets of a sales coach. We actually wrote this book because we found that for a lot of the organizations that we work with, which tend to be B2B companies that are attempting to sell either into the enterprise or small business size, that as they grow, they end up leveling the sales team by adding management layers. And that management layer is supposed to optimize the function of a sales individual. And obviously the individual has some responsibility of their own for their own destiny and to create some opportunities by which they can measure their success, create metrics around their success, and benchmark that for continuous improvement. So what we found in talking to folks who've been in this industry for a long time is that there's really no rigor around how you go about coaching salespeople. And salespeople are unique to a company, right?
Sure.
They're performance compensated, right? Their performance is exposed for the world to see. If I'm an accountant, you may not know if I took a day off, took a month off. You know what I mean? Actually, you'd know if I took a month off, depending upon how many beans I'm counting.
I would certainly hope somebody would notice. Yeah,
somebody would know, right?
If not the IRS, somebody would notice.
Right, exactly. But the challenge with salespeople, I think most people can agree, is fairly different. The other piece around that is that salespeople are battered every day. I have a sister who's an actress, and we talk about going on auditions, and she doesn't go on 80 auditions a day, right? She's not making cold calls all day long or sending emails and things like that. So the challenge was, how do we create something that is lightweight enough for somebody who coaching or mentorship is a small part of their job function, if not necessarily the entirety of it, that is a framework that they could use to help to partner with someone who reports to them in a way that helps them to grow their effectiveness. And the acronym we came up with, ironically, for a sales coach is COACH. And if you know anything about our books, we've written 6 books all in the sales space. We like the use of acronyms and frameworks because it's easy to recall a large body of information, easy to share inside of an organization, and easy to hold yourself accountable to. So the 5 secrets of a sales coach is written as a parable. We decided to take the Lencioni style of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, or some of the other folks who have had some really effective business parables. Was a challenging write, but it's a story about a sales manager who aspires to be an effective sales coach. The COACH acronym stands for challenge, opportunity, action plan, consequence, and hold accountable. And those are the 5 secrets to effectively coaching salespeople. The first piece being that you've got to identify what is the challenge that is the lowest hanging fruit with the highest value opportunity. So a lot of times managers of any sort will point to the fact that, Chris isn't doing this well and this well and this well and this well. Well, there's only one of those things that's really critical at this moment right now. And sometimes if you identify that one, that will cause a domino effect of the others to be effective. So the role of the sales manager in a coaching function is to identify what is that one thing that I can coach towards and help create a greater level of efficiency or performance that will then have a significant impact on the rest of this person's results, right? The next piece to that is the responsibility of someone in a coaching function is to be able to outline the path to success. And a lot of times what we've seen is that folks who have a reporting relationship with an employee will go into the conversation looking for the results in the conversation. Well, we take the view that the onus is on you as a manager and as a coach to really know that, okay, Hilmon's at this stage, which is stage A, and he needs to get to stage B. What is that gap in between, and what's his path towards getting there? And once you've identified that, then you can have a greater chance of coming to a collaborative agreement around what the action plan should be, which is the A. And the action plan, whether you follow OKRs, objective key results, KPIs, key performance indicators, SMART goals, doesn't matter what you choose, right? Pick your flavor. Google it and pick your flavor, but just pick one, right? And align on that and create an action plan. And this should be a short-term action plan that has dual accountability. We'll talk about that piece in a second. But the next piece is then consequences. In the role of manager, part of your responsibility is to ensure that the person that's working with you understands 2 sides of consequences. What's the upside of following through on the action plan? What results should we be looking for? And what benefit does this have to the individual as well as to their role? Also, if you don't get it done, what are the consequences of that, right? That's not to say that every consequence is a termination, but maybe it's that you don't hit your quota. Maybe it's that you don't get that vacation. Maybe it's that you're not buying that house that you wanted in 6 months. Who knows? But align around that so you can create some real cohesive energy and desire around making that happen for both of you. And then finally, the hold accountable piece. There's two sides to that coin. As a manager, a lot of times we pat somebody on the back and say, sure, Chris, go forth and conquer. Good luck to you, right? And what we look for here is really dual accountability. It has to be like, so what is your piece in this? And then what would you like me to do to help you to succeed? So again, the acronym is COACH. And the book is all about an individual's journey towards identifying that acronym as the path to success.
Where have you seen, and I'm sure there are specific examples that come to mind, where if somebody's missing one of these letters in this acronym, right? Like, what are the consequences of those, or what have you seen to be a detriment to those specific sales coaches?
Yeah, I'll take them off really quickly. The detriment to not understanding the challenge is that you end up coaching people on things that really do not bear results. And that actually correlates to nitpicking. And there's only so far you can go with that, right? Where you're constantly badgering people over things that just really are not significant. And even once they achieve those insignificant milestones, they're not moving the needle, right? So that's the first piece. On the O is not knowing specifically what is the path to success. Sometimes we're dealing with folks, particularly in some of these really fast growth startups, where you're a first time sales manager and you got promoted to it. It's, the Peter principle, where you were the best salesperson, you became the sales manager, and now you really have had no training in this role. So you've got a little bit of imposter syndrome going, and you're grasping at straws, and you have no idea what the solution is. You just know this person's not getting it done. Well, that creates a lot of confusion, creates a lot of resentment, does not create a cohesive or trusting coaching relationship, and one or both of you will end up leaving at some point. The action plan, the biggest challenge here is just identifying, that whole saying around how do you eat an elephant one small bite at a time, just like what are the little steps that we can measure on a daily basis and call success at the end of the day that are going to correlate to a big win, right? Or if you look at that marginal theory of marginal gains, right? 1% per day, adding up to something pretty significant by the end of a month, and much more so by the end of a year, right? The last two pieces, that consequence piece, if you don't let people know what's coming, then you end up in that awkward conversation. Here's the challenge with this one. The biggest challenge with this is that you end up not moving on people who really need to be moved out of the role because you haven't told them. And so you haven't greased the skids for the conversation. If I haven't told you that because you didn't do this activity, we're going to have a conversation and put you on a performance improvement plan, or have to kind of have a conversation about whether or not you should be in this role, then how do I subsequently have that conversation with you? It's like anybody who has children, right? If you don't tell them, we're going into the store and you're going to have this candy facing you in the face when we get to the checkout line, don't ask me for it, right? Then you end up with the meltdown in the store, right? Nothing worse than an adult meltdown. And then finally, the hold accountable one, it falls apart where this is actually the biggest problem is sales managers have a ton of stuff on their plate and coaching folks is not a whole lot of fun. And so I might ask you to do something and never come check. And you know what? If you don't inspect what you expect, you end up with folks who know that, and they'll just nod their head in a meeting and say, sure, I'll get that done, Hilmon. And then they know you're going to go away and forget all about it, and that doesn't move the needle either. So there are consequences to each one, right?
Interesting. That works, and it's easy to remember, right? Sales coach.
That's the bottom line, man.
I love those acronyms because honestly, in an organization, if you don't have those things, and not just in a sales capacity, I feel like you said, you get busy doing the stuff that you're doing, right? And it's just, you need systems, and I feel like that's a beautiful system. From what I can tell, from what you just described, it sounds like it's a perfect system for that capacity.
Well, the other thing is just that the human brain works in such a way that we like to chunk things into our memory, right?
Yeah.
And we like habit. We are creatures of habit for a reason.
I talk about it all the time, trust me.
Aren't we? Right? Okay, so there you go. And it makes it easier to make this a habit when you're able to chunk this into something rather small, rather than taking 8 minutes of me explaining what this whole thing means and trying to remember, okay, I got it conceptually, right? Yep. Now, how do I go about applying this thing? That's exactly right.
Yeah. I remember, side tangent here. I remember when I read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Yeah.
And he talked about the elderly gentleman that had I think it was like a bacterial or something infection in his brain.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It removed his ability to retain memory at all, or I think it was short-term memory. So he could remember like who he was, but I don't think he could store any actual short. It was, I don't know if it was based. I know the movie Memento, which was one of Chris Nolan's like earlier movies. They kind of like borrowed a lot of the science that was illustrated. I wonder if there were some parallels there, but that's a whole nother topic. But what was fascinating was that he could still build habits, and I'm like, this just shows you truly the power of what habits can do in your life. But I think there's so many entrepreneurs that they're not putting these mechanisms like Coach in their life. Yeah. And they're not taking advantage of, they try to willpower their way through everything. And if you're not, there's a degree, right? Short-term willpower towards building a habit, I think is the secret and magic formula, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like when you're not doing that, you just make your life so much harder than it has to be.
You know, I agree with that completely. And I wish that someone had this conversation with me a long time ago, let's say, to not belie my age. But now that I'm at a point where there's somewhat necessity, meaning there's so much going on in my life. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, having anything from children to responsibilities to managing a bunch of companies to just being busy, right? And just mayhem in the world, right? The ability to focus necessitates you understanding how not just how the mind works and like neuroplasticity and all those types of things, but how your mind most effectively works. Even just, you know, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but even just coming to the understanding that, you know, okay, my greatest creative time is between 6:30 in the morning and 7:30 in the morning. My greatest, like, I need to just be, you know, just not thinking about anything and just letting the creative process take place from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Whatever it might be, you've got to get to a point, particularly as an entrepreneur, because time is the one finite equation, right? We all have the same amount of it, yet it still remains finite, right? Yeah. And we have a lot to get done. And often as an entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur, I'm wearing tons of different hats. You know, you switch in and out of, like, an hour before this, I was accounting mode, right? 3 hours before that, I was training mode. 2 hours, you know, before that, I was just, you know, trying to figure out a creative design for something, you know what I mean? And as we're switching gears on those things, you've got to know how to optimize your own mental faculties to be able to do it successfully. And the more you can condense the superfluous, meaning like a thing like Coach as a framework allows you to just go, oh yeah, okay, got it. I can rifle through that really simply rather than a whole corpus of knowledge, right?
Yeah, I think it's so much easier too to just, so we've talked about this often, but if you look at it, you know, guys like Zuck and guys like Steve Jobs, that they literally tried to reduce their bandwidth as much as they possibly could, even to the point where it was like, I'm just going to wear the same clothes every day because that's one less thing. So having something to fall back on, like a framework like Coach, to me, it's just so it's right in line with what we're talking about, as I see.
Well, I'll yes and that, and say that for a lot of the executives that we coach and that we work with, either those that are in our portfolio or those that are clients of ours, we've been able to help them to understand the benefits of COVID. If you know, looking at a silver lining, obviously, and forgiving all of the tragedy that ensues, but. The benefits being that there are a few less things to think about, right?
Yeah.
You're no longer commuting. You're no longer managing an office. You no longer have unexpected interruptions all day long, such as you allow, right? There's just, and once folks got around that corner and realized, wow, focus is through the roof. Time chunking is like now all my own. You know, this is a different conversation, but it might be difficult to get people back into the office at some point.
It might. I'm telling you what, man. I've had an online business now, working from home for several years, like three and a half years now. Yeah. You're not getting me back into an office.
Oh, quiet. Keep it quiet, but I'm with you.
There's going to have to be a multiplier of just a huge degree for me to go off and do something else at this point, like really and truly. And I know that will happen. I'm very ambitious, and I know eventually my ambition will get the better of me, but I am fully enjoying this season of my life. Let me assure you.
I hear you. That's great.
Cool, man. All right. So we've talked about, I teased it earlier, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit. Sales enablement. All right. So before we jump into your definition and how to use that to focus on a prospect, can you just give people an idea of what is sales enablement?
You know, no one has a great answer for that. Right. We wrote a book called the Sales Enablement Playbook because we have a thesis around what it means, and it's really simple. The thesis is really that sales enablement is the process of creating a prospect-centric ecosystem inside of your company. And what that simply means is that having every function, even if it's you who's wearing each of these hats, right? Having every function basically productive through the lens of how this impacts your prospect, how this impacts not just increasing sales, but impacts your prospect. So here's what I mean by that. Taking away the lens of being B2B or enterprise or startups in Silicon Valley or anything like that. Everybody's got a customer. Everybody's got a product or service, right? Everybody's got a means of delivery. Everybody's got a means of fulfillment. Everybody's got a means of something called customer success or after sales, post sale, whatever you want to call that thing, right? Sure. If we view all of those things through the lens of a prospect's perception, and even keeping in mind that once somebody is a customer or a client, they remain a prospect either for upsell, cross-sell, or resell, right? Yep. If you view everything through that lens, what are the tools that you need in order to make that happen? Now, I have to put an asterisk next to tool because a lot of people, particularly in this day and age, think tool means technology.
I would literally, yep.
Right? And that's not what I mean. We actually go into many organizations. We do what's called a sales effectiveness assessment up front. And one of the things that we look at, in addition to strategy, staff, and skills, is systems, right? And when we're looking at systems, we're evaluating the necessity of the system, the efficacy of the system. Is it doing what you anticipated it to do? And is it actually being utilized by folks to its ultimate purpose? Yeah. And often we tell people, pull that thing out and figure it out in analog first. Yes. Before you go amplifying. There's someone I worked with before who said, technology often can just amplify the suck, right?
Totally agree with that.
So what we're looking at here, a lot of folks think of sales enablement as either a role, right, where it's an individual and that individual becomes a special projects coordinator. It's not a role, right? Mm-hmm. Some people think of it as technology because there are probably 2,500 or more technology platforms that fall under the guise of sales enablement. But here's where they fall. They fall under things like LMS, learning management system. They fall under things like email automation. They fall under things like CRM. And it's like, well, these are completely disparate systems. And I've only mentioned 3 of like the 35 different categories. So it's not just tech, but what it is the ecosystem. So whether you are an online business, whether you are B2B enterprise and you've got a whole bunch of sales development reps who are making outbound calls and then that goes to an account executive and moves on down the line, whether you are a solopreneur, whether you are a professional services firm, the piece of sales enablement is strictly around how do I look at every step of my process through the lens of my prospect or my customer.
Yes. So you really struck a chord with me here because I remember I had a really complex, my first business was just so many touch points with a customer. There were so many moving parts and pieces, so many employees involved, and then the deliverables just required so much manpower to actually like finish that assignment. Yeah. But I remember it was so overwhelming and it was so abstract, right? We didn't have like an actual system or a process to go about doing it. And thus it was so hard to actually have any form of consistency, right? In terms of how we actually, if some person answered the phone or if somebody sent the email or whatever that entailed, it just was completely arbitrary, right? And so we couldn't create like we couldn't create the same customer experience from one customer to the next, right?
Precisely.
So I literally sat down and I wrote every step of the process. It ended up being 33 steps from what I call womb to tomb, right?
Love it.
From initial contact to follow up on the back end, job completed, follow up with customer. We automated at some point, right? Now I know you said tools and we don't automatically mean technology, but the reason that I want to highlight that specifically is because it took us to master the analog version of it first.
Yes.
So that we could scale that out with technology. Right.
That's right.
And what we ended up being able to do, Hilmon, was effectively really focus our efforts once we were able to stack on some technology and be able to really automate the process. Now, obviously highlighting, and we would circle the points in the steps, right? If there were 33 steps, we would circle the ones that like always require a human, right? There's just some things that I feel like would always require a human in that capacity, not in all capacities, but in this specific capacity, there were steps that really were fundamentally important for us to have a conversation with the customer. I think we got it down to like 3 or 4. The rest of them was just purely automated processes, so on and so forth. It took a lot of work to get to that point. However, I don't think we would have understood the process well enough to be able to do that had we not first analogged it when we started the process. I think people get really overwhelmed with technology. They get like, I need this tool and this tool and this tool, and they're spending, $1,000 in tools before they've even made a first buck. And I just think that's a huge mistake.
It's a huge mistake. The other piece, first off, I love that you actually did that you flow charted it and that you identified what could be automated and what was human. And also just the knowledge, the intimate knowledge you gain of your entire process in doing that is one huge piece. The second piece, and we kind of call that a playbook, right? We call that's one piece of a sales playbook type or of an engagement, right? That womb to tomb piece that you mentioned. The other thing that happens here, though, that's so essential is once you've spec'd that all out, you can identify the places where you can do some testing, right? Like, what if we did this here instead? Does that increase conversion? Does that increase retention? Does that increase the volume of conversations that we're having? If you're not doing that, you're just shooting from the hip. And truly, if you want to get some economies of scale, and if you want to create velocity, repeatability, that's the way you do it, is knowing your business inside and out from that vantage point. And there's something, I don't know if you felt this way after, but I often feel this way after we've worked with clients where they just feel as though they have a greater hold on the business and the business isn't driving them, they're actually driving it.
That was the biggest thing. I feel like I claimed my life back because for a long time, it just felt like we were just riding the roller coaster, and I think a lot of business owners, they when they've been in that state of overwhelm for so long, where they don't own their sales process, I feel like they think that they feel like the customer owns the dynamic and they can't sell with confidence. I think that's part of it. But also too, I think the longer they stay in overwhelm, I always talk about this paradox or this paradigm of like, you end up intrinsically making whatever challenge you have into Mount Everest, and you feel like it's going to take forever so mentally you're kind of stuck, right? Because you're not, it's this really small problem, and you would jump in and like help them and be like, oh my God, this was so easy. Why was it so easy? It's because how long they've been stuck with the problem.
There's no emotional investment on my side, right?
It's unbelievable the ways we will play these tricks on our minds, right?
That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. It's so interesting that is a common plight of the entrepreneur, because here's the interesting thing, in full disclosure. As much, it's like the plumber's sink is dripping. I can think of 5 or 6 different business processes in my own organization right now that I could truly attribute that feeling to, that because of either emotional investment or even just, so here's the other thing about being Dr. Seuss and wearing all these hats as an entrepreneur. There's some that you just don't derive energy from. Like it is hard for me to get motivated to do 1 or 2 things. Luckily, there's 100 things that I have to do, but 1 or 2 that are essential, I just really got to pull it together, and, everyone knows to stay out of my way for that day. You know what I mean? But that's absolutely true.
Yeah, especially now. And I want to see if you agree with this as well while we're on this topic. I think the other thing that people make the mistake in doing, and this is where tools kind of become the shiny object that causes a lot of problems. So let's talk specifically about what I mean.
Yeah.
Looking at something like email, your email follow-up sequences, right? Okay. So you get a new lead and you want to build out a sales funnel. I think the problem with that is that you're trying to build out 12 at one time versus really perfecting one and really testing the one and looking at the analytics. And like you said, looking at the measurables. How can we, increase our conversions at this step? We're really seeing a huge fall off here, or these amount of people that are coming in. We have a lead issue, right? We need to generate more leads into this funnel. How do you recommend is it as simple as just taking one by one as you see it? Or is there a way that you go about doing it so that you can continue to test these things? Because I think we're doing a lot of things, but not doing anything really, really well sometimes.
Gosh, that's really interesting and really timely. I have a very good friend who has been a senior salesperson in an enterprise selling role in a very large and well-known household name type organization that does B2B sales, who's deciding to spin out and start his own course. So he's going to be online doing course creation. And
I know his problems, his challenges.
What's that?
I already can tell you what some of his challenges are.
Well, what's the first one, right? The first is, there are a lot around just course design and how do you figure out what this thing is supposed to be, and understanding messaging, right? The difference between what I want it to be and what other people want it to be. The people who are paying you want it to be something that may not be the words that initially come out of your mouth, right? So I've been doing free consulting. He's my friend, telling him some things to do. But to your point, he's running some Facebook ads, and he's developing a funnel, right? From clicking from the Facebook ads into a webinar. It's not an automated webinar yet. It's actually a live webinar, and he's got a landing page there. And just last night, I was using all these expletives around it. I'm just like, what is this? I'm like, this is not going to work. What are you doing? He's like, well, and he's spent, some money on trying to get conversions. He's getting people to one step and not to the other. But short answer to your question. The first piece is that you really, and this goes back to this is how sales enablement relates to this space. Okay. So when I say that you're looking at this through the lens of a prospect is not looking at your landing page and understanding all of the reasons why you chose these words and why you've chosen this color. A prospect is accustomed to efficiency. right? I have a problem, which is like one of like 7 or 8 human condition problems, right? Of like more money, happiness,
Sure.
there's basic things, right?
Yep.
Are you hitting any of those drivers? Are you allowing me to execute on a selection of those drivers above scrolling 60 minutes to finally find your button? Does the button and call to action make logical sense based upon the amount of interaction I've had with you as a company or with your site, right? And is that next step that you're asking me to opt into fair? And is there a perception of value that's greater than whatever my expenditure might be, right? These are basics. However, as basic as they sound, when you have passion around your business, when you have spent, how many countless hours honing and noodling what the offer or what the thing is that it's going to be, you really kind of do not come to it with that beginner's mind of let me go learn. Yep. You come to it with this mindset of like, I need conversions, revenue in my Excel spreadsheet or whatever tool I'm using to quantify my income says that I should have X number of sales by this time. And you're not thinking about the enablement piece of the experience.
Yes.
So the enablement thing then becomes, what am I doing? And, going back to a guest you had prior, which I really appreciated, talking about the concept of repurposing content and things, and just how I think she said that every touch needs to have, I inferred it to mean every touch needs to have value. They need to look forward to interactions with you and understand that I'm going to get something, whether it's happiness or whether it's education, right? Yeah. Well, stepping back and being able to look at it through that lens is what's required. And that's why I think a lot of people enlist the help of a consultant. But you know what? You don't have to, because I'll tell you what I told him. I said, go look at the 100 things that are in your feed right now that are trying to get you to engage, and just look at what they have in common. Yeah. And if you're seeing it every day, you're seeing it every day because it's working. It may not be working on you, but no one is spending money every day, month after month, for something that is not converting. Don't reinvent the wheel. Go steal. And when I say steal, I don't mean steal somebody's language or brand or someone who's in the same neighborhood as you, but like go borrow for ideologically, if
the well,
will, liberally, right?
Yep. I think one of the hard parts for a lot of people in that capacity, and this was my biggest challenge, because I've sold multiple 6-figure, almost pushing 7-figure contracts, right?
Yep.
And I grew up in a sales family. My father was a very successful salesperson, so I was always very interested in business and transactions and deals being made and stuff like that. And so when I started my first business and I was having tremendous success in my early to mid 20s, it was like, hey, I'm good at this. I'm good at sales. When I went to the online space, I couldn't sell something for $5.
Isn't that interesting?
What is going on? And you know what I realized? There's sales and there's marketing, and then there's the psychology aspect.
Yes.
Because I think, and maybe your friend specifically, one of the challenging aspects is if we're having a conversation here and I'm trying to sell you something, I can read your body language. Yes. I can read your response to my pitch. If I'm on a slide in a presentation that I'm giving you, I can see you, kind of make a face to a certain slide, or I can see confusion on your face. And so I can address that specifically. And then I can keep augmenting that as I go and I present it to other people, right? I can read the room.
Loop.
You're selling the person not just as much as you are selling the product, right? That's right. Now, when you're talking about building, and this goes back to what we talked about before, the analog versus, just tool stacking. Until you've done that, until you understand every step of the process, right? It's so hard to translate that into a space where you don't have that second chance. If they're going through a system, it's either the system hits with them and it rings true, or it doesn't. There's no, hey, I see you and you responded negatively to that. Let me correct you, or let me help you further with that. You got one shot.
That's right.
And that's really a tough proposition, and one that I have mightily struggled with in the online space.
I have as well. And I prefer that in-person face-to-face, because that's what I grew up. I mean, even just like cold calling people when I was 14, I lied about my age to get a job in inside sales, and people laugh to this day. I can hear, I'm like, are you pouring a glass of water? Like, it's creepy, like the things that I can hear through a phone, funny. Right? Because my ear is so attuned to it. Yeah. But, a large piece of what you're talking about is that feedback loop, right? Yep. So in understanding that, you can go so much deeper live. And by live, I mean Zoom, I mean phone call, sure. I mean whatever is direct and immediate response, right? Then you can in a marketing effort, which means that you have to really look at your marketing through the lens of making it a no-brainer. Right? One of the things I reflected to this friend is I said, if you looked at this and it was not your site, what would you do here?
Yes.
I don't even know what you're offering me.
Yes.
And now you're asking me to spend $299 on something that I just now heard of.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense. So make it accessible for me.
Yes.
And don't try to go for the quick. Marketing is a long game, man. You know what I mean? That's why so many dollars are attached to it. So don't go for that quick conversion. It's not a transactional cold call, right? You're not selling Yelp. You know what I mean? And I don't mean any disparagement to Yelp. It just happens to be a one call close, right? Either you want it, and I'm telling you, there's 16 other businesses that are doing it. They're just like you, and they're going to get your business if you don't, or you don't, right? It's very that easy. But if you look at this I
think though, to that point also, and I know we're talking about online courses now, but I see a lot of people, I call my LinkedIn message inbox a cesspool.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's just bot activity. It's just somebody friends you or connects with you rather. And the first thing they do is just start pitching you and they get your name wrong. And they say, "Hi, Roger, my name is Chris, bro. What are you talking about?" Like, it's become so, we have used technology to such a degree that we've become so impersonal that there's no human to human connection at all.
It's lazy.
It's super lazy. So I think what you said is really important, is that even that, so I'll give you an example. This person connected with me on LinkedIn. I usually know what that means. I usually know there's a pitch coming pretty quickly after that, right? Doesn't mean I'm not interested in what they're selling, but take me through a process, right? If you go straight for the kill, I don't care what it is. It's likely that I'm probably going to
buy me a drink.
I'm just turned off by the fact that you're just trying to pitch me immediately, right?
Right.
But she sent me she recorded a personal video message. And there was some call to action that wasn't, "Hey, can we grab coffee?" I tell a friend of mine, he teases me all the time because I say, "I don't like coffee and my brain is tired of being picked," right? Like, don't give me those two pitches, because I've heard it a million and a half times and I'm done with them. I'm done with them. So there was some unique call to action that you could tell she had done some degree of research on what it is that I do. And it was beautifully done. And I said, you know what? I'm probably going to say no to this because it's not relative to my space at all. But I'm going to say yes to this request purely because of the way that she took the time to approach it. Right.
Absolutely. I do the same thing all day long. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, what's interesting, for those who have an opportunity to leverage video through LinkedIn, it's what we do. We've got a couple people who work inside of our organization that do some outbound reaching out to specific personas, and folks that we're trying to target. And we send video, and the video is specific for that individual, and it's highly relevant. And we're telling them why we want to talk to them in the context of what we've done for other people who are like them, and not just like, "Hey, saw you went to, UT," what I mean? Like, not the at a glance piece, but something that may have taken a little research. And you know what? It takes a little more time. But our conversion rate on those things is significantly higher. And not just that, but the perception of our brand. People say, even when they're saying no, they're like, "Really appreciate the context. This is actually something we're already working on. We'll keep you guys in mind." And then the other follow-up is like, "Well, would you mind if we keep you abreast of some of our changes?" And then they're in an email, and who knows what that becomes. But the perception is professional. And when a professional meets a professional, that's typically responded with favorably.
How do you decide what should be that first call to action? I mean, I know that's a really broad question. I know that's going to be contingent. It's going to be case by case. It depends on what it is you specifically do. But what is your thought process? I think this is where a lot of people, they struggle, right? They struggle to figure, okay, what should it be? And I think that's why they defer to something like, "Let's get coffee," because getting coffee is a very non-aggressive, really casual suggestion that they can make, right? As far as the first step. Albeit people that protect their time as they should are like, no. Like, that's because meeting you is going to take 30 minutes to and from, and then you're going to have an hour. That's 2 hours of my day, bro. Like, I can't do that. That's too much. Right. So how do you go about assessing? And this applies to online, for online courses. This applies to people in a sales capacity that's, more face-to-face, one-on-one. Yeah. What's the process that you go through to determine this is what makes sense, right? Is there a framework that you use? Is there some psychology that you deploy to figure out what should be that first immediate call to action to entice them to take the next steps?
Well, now that you mentioned framework, there is a framework that we call HELP, which I'll tell you about in just a second.
I knew you had an acronym in you.
It's an acronym. It stands for Highlight, Educate, Leverage, and Predict. So what we're doing there, and that's typically done once you're inside of a sales process with someone to help them move and create some velocity. You either want to highlight some things that you've uncovered from them that are some things that they need to solve for, educate them around some things that are relevant to the space or relevant to the type of project or point solution that you're looking for, leverage either relationships that you have that might be inside of the company or something along those lines, and predict the future is just kind of let people know what's going to happen, as a result of where they stand today. But more tactically speaking, we coach clients around the fact that they need to determine what could be a diagnostic that is a low friction, low barrier to entry from the standpoint of cost or time investment that offers a significant amount of value to help someone to determine whether or not working with you makes sense. So here's how that could look. For us, we'll send a book. We've written 6 books. We write them for a couple reasons. One, it helps us to codify a methodology and to really be credible and rigid around what it is that we think about something specifically. The other reason is because I can send you a book for free and just go, hey, look at page 32 and page 67. This is what we're doing for some companies. Let me know if it resonates. Boom, done. You had a whole book of value, right? Yeah. That's great. Everyone likes, we used to get those little red Netflix things in the mailbox. Nobody gets an email anymore. Like, this is nice, right? The other thing is, anything that's diagnostic. If you offer something online that's, let's go back to, since just sticking consistent with the idea of an online training course or university, there could be something that is just an opt-in, and it could be as low tech as a Google form, right? Or a type form that just goes, fill this out as an assessment. It could be a self-assessment, the always, sometimes, never type thing, right? That helps me now to get my mind around what I'm going to get from this webinar, right? Anything, though, that has a significant amount of value, that doesn't cost you a lot of time or energy or resources for your organization, that gives you credibility and allows for a greater level of engagement with whatever your product or service might be, is the way we typically go.
I hear kind of the common denominator in everything you just said is it's a you first attitude. Meaning
absolutely.
You're focused. I think that some people come into it and they go straight for what's in it for me, not what's in it for them. Right. And I think that's where value-driven content is just so powerful, like what we're doing right now. Because
agreed.
Now you are going to have your leechers, you are going to have people, and some people, I think this is a huge issue because I call it Gary V syndrome, meaning Gary Vaynerchuk. And the reason I say that is because some people, they know that they need to create content, but there's no real rhyme or reason. They're just creating stuff because it's just like, well, I'm going to create stuff. And there has to be a rhyme or reason for it. I fall into this trap, and I preached against these things, and I fall into the trap, so I totally get it, right? But I think we have to focus on, okay, how do we deliver value in a way that's helpful and meaningful to someone, that creates those touch points you're looking for, that takes them through a system that allows you to eventually turn that person into a customer, not because you're trying to, I'm going to lure them in, manipulatively taking them through the process, but because you truly want to provide a resource that's going to help provide utility in their life.
That's right. And I think that in doing so, there are people who will just take. And fortunately, I think that they are far outnumbered by the people who will find value. The other thing that happens there is just psychologically, 2 pieces, the piece around reciprocity and the piece around ownership. Right. If I've taken the assessment, it's why Cosmo had a quiz every month. Yes. I don't know if they still do, right? But you know what I mean? It's like, you take the Cosmo quiz. I love the Cosmo magazine told me that my relationship's going to work out for the next 6 months. You know
Which Disney princess am I? And they get millions of people that fill it out and share it.
Totally. Absolutely. I've never seen one in like a doctor's waiting room that wasn't completely full. I get upset. I'm like, what about me? I want a princess too. No, but really it's, these things exist. And so again, when I say borrow liberally, just look at the things that aren't even necessarily online, because again, the human being has not changed and evolved so significantly that the things that were etched in a stone tablet are motivating us any differently than the things that are in your Twitter feed. You know what I mean? So if you want to get creative. This is my method, right? I go in reverse. I have books on my bookshelf that are like first editions from 1937 around direct marketing copy. Why? Because no one's doing that thing right now, and it's still relevant because they had to do it when you had to like lick a stamp, send it by carrier pigeon, who knows what, right?
Yeah, a buddy of mine told me he's doing that. He's just cleaning up because he said no one's making phone calls anymore, cold calls. Everybody's in those LinkedIn message bots, or everybody's into just cold emails. He's picking up the phone, and he's getting on the phone with executives, like just picking up the phone to call, because guess what? that channel's wide open. Nobody's doing it anymore.
Let me tell you this, two things. Funny thing that you mentioned it. I'm gonna throw this plug in there since you teed it up for me. But our next book, which is going to be released in about 3 weeks, is called 46 Reasons Why Your Cold Calls Fail. And it's named that purposely. It's really a book around how to do cold calling effectively, right?
Sure.
Because it's back with a vengeance. But here's the other reason why. You've got COVID. There's only one way to get in touch with anybody now. There's no gatekeeper. There is a gatekeeper to some extent, but like for most folks, it's your cell phone and it's right there on your desk all day long, and people are answering it because it's the speed of business today. So we are seeing a giant uptick in the accessibility of VPs and C-level individuals. If that's your business, calling these people is a great way to go. And there's a method to do it where you don't have to sound like, the old newspaper salesperson from 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. Now, let me ask you this. This is I think this is the next tough question. So first was, how do I entice them? I think you gave some really good advice on that. I think that was really cleared up a lot of people's maybe confusion around that.
Yep.
I think, how do you go from which Disney princess are you, right? And that's a stupid example. That's not something you actually do. But I think what the struggle is for a lot of people, and I've been on the opposite side of this, right? And you said something. You said, borrow liberally, which I think is great. One of the things that I've experienced when I've gone through other people's process, and that's something I really recommend, is go through other people's sales processes.
Yes.
Right? Like, be a shadow customer. And to a large degree, figure out the people that you like. Russell Brunson says to do this. He says to go funnel hack other people, right? Like, go through their process and see why they're doing what they're doing. So buy their product. Yes. Because you're getting an education on how they do what they do, in addition to the value that you're getting from their program. But anyways, that's
and save every email they send you afterwards, so you can model those, right? Yeah, absolutely. We've all done it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think that next step is the hard part. How do I transition from, hey, I just gave you a free book, to now I'm trying to sell you something, right? Because I think people, they've established a relationship of I'm giving you value for free, into, okay, now I'm transitioning into creating a relationship of selling you something. Am I laying that out properly? Is that
you absolutely are. And we can go backwards in the conversation to find the answer. So the idea is that you've got to understand from the prospect's perspective, where are they today vis-a-vis the solution that you sell? Meaning, when I say solution, I don't mean the tech or the site or the whatever. Like, I've got an online sales university, right? It exists so that one reason it exists is that someone who might be in an entry-level role today, who has very little management or coaching support, has zero training whatsoever, can paint for themselves and architect their own path to the next promotion, where they can get more money. Let's just say that is the first solution, right? So what's the path to getting there? First is you get Triangle Selling as a book, which is free, which spells out an entire methodology, right? I know the next thing you need after Triangle Selling is an assessment to help you understand where you are vis-a-vis Triangle Selling. What are the things you need to learn? So I can sell you that, because it's a logical next step given the amount of engagement and the amount of credibility that I have with you and the amount of value I've given you so far. Once you've had that assessment, now you know what types of courses you need to take. So now I can move you into Closed Loop University and say, here are the first 3 courses that you should take, and offer you some value there and charge you for that. After you've done that, maybe you get into your role. You know what I mean? And this is actually, Russell Brunson talks about this all the time, this value ladder, right? You get into, he's not the first to talk about it. Some people have talked about it in the context of most folks have started with an iPod, and you end up like, I'm literally sitting here at a desk that has 7 Apple devices on it, right? You know what I mean? And I started with an iPod 10 years ago, right? So that's the idea, but you have to know, and you have to look from the prospect's perspective, and you have to reverse engineer where you ultimately want them to be, which is maybe your $4.99, $6.99, $12.99 product. And then what are the stages before that are going to help them to get there, and continually see nothing but value in what you provide them. You don't say, here's a Facebook ad, click on this to convert to $6.99 for my XYZ thing, even though you've never heard of me. It does not work. It'll work once, but it will not create your lifestyle in Bali, right?
Yeah. No, man, that's, again, I think going back to what we talked about before, this is why you have to analog it out. This is why you have to draw up the same way. You have to flow chart it, draw out whatever that looks like, because until you do that, and truth be told too, and I think this is another relative point to make, and I see this way too often, specifically with online business owners, they're really fascinated with selling courses. That's the goal. And it's a beautiful thing, because let's say you're a coach. If you're renting your time, right? People are paying for your time, but in that, some people literally, they'll go, when you see they have their breakthrough with their online courses, while they're in a coaching session, they sell 3 programs and they made like 4 times more than what they would have made in that one session. That happens, right?
That's right.
So I get the unlimited scalability of selling things online. But I think people, and this is like a mantra that I live by and I preach all the time, but I say, you can expedite the steps, but you can't skip them. Meaning,
Correct.
There's so much relative education in what you're going to learn. What is the next step? Well, you don't learn that by guessing. You learn that by actually working with people, rolling up your sleeves, doing the hands-on work, even if that means you're going and volunteering for someplace first, right? I'm not saying you have to do it for free, but what is the most minimum viable product of whatever it is you're offering looks like, so that you really understand, A, what the hell do people want? B, what are the next steps? What are the challenges they're having? Like, hey, I'm seeing that people, when they take them through this process, the one you just mentioned, they really are confused about where they should align themselves or what they need to learn next. You're not going to know that by just standing on the sidelines, playing on the internet, just running Facebook ads, trying to guess at things.
So see, now you're talking like an EIR, like at a seed or an accelerator, right? Because that's absolutely true, because that's the process that we use with folks who have tech products. When it's 2 people in the garage who've got some startup and they've got some idea, they create an MVP, they go to alpha, then beta, then give it away for free and see if, and then what do? They go to the customers and they go, how much would you pay for this?
Right.
How are you using this?
Yeah.
What do you wish it had? Right?
Yeah.
Before they're charging a dime. So here's what that allows you to do, though. So if you look at the fact that most venture capital goes into these firms that are startups, technology, and they're all following this same product development methodology, and they are expected to have hockey stick-like growth, right? Because the return on investment from a VC needs to happen pretty darn quick, right? Well, why don't we, who are not necessarily in that space, adopt the same rapid methodology for feedback? You get much more if you told 100, not even 100, whatever your benchmark is. Let's say you could tell 50 people, I will do this coaching thing for free. Cohort them, right? Don't have yourself going crazy, 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night, coaching a whole bunch of people. Put them in a cohort, whatever, but give it to them free. Find out what the path is. What are the questions they're asking? And then how much would you pay for this? If I offered this, would this be valuable to you? What frequency would you like emails to come to reinforce these things that we've talked about? Get it. And you know what? That gift of free does a couple things. One, it puts out into the world just some good stuff, because you've scholarshiped some people into some things, which are great, right? The other piece is the amount of information that you get back is valuable. I mean, it is like, and the other thing is, you only, going again, circling back to what you said earlier about that emotional attachment and how we continue to do the same thing because we're emotionally invested, right? It's like why people ride a stock to the very bottom, because I bought it at $100, it's going to come back, right? Right? So before you get emotionally invested, go get yourself some information and then use the doggone data to make your assumptions and decisions. That's the idea.
Yeah. And so there's a really awesome way. I'm actually doing this right now with a new program that we're looking to launch. And the awesome thing about that is that what we've been able to glean from those conversations. So we said, hey, we're going to give it to you for free, but we want to ask you some questions first about what you're looking for, what you've experienced before that didn't really, meet your expectations, why you're still stuck with this challenge that you're having, despite the fact that you invested money in this problem already. What we're also finding too, and we talked about this before, is they're not nailing the marketing. They're not hitting that, oh my God, I got to have this, right? So what you can find from those conversations once they get their hands on it is you can extract the marketing message that you need to deliver. But also, too, if you're offering bonuses that go with whatever you're selling, they're going to tell you, oh, man, but it was this, and this that really, like, I would absolutely, guess what? There's your bonuses. There's your bonuses.
That's exactly right.
That's what you're putting. So here's the logical argument. The bonuses are what make it a no-brainer, right?
That's exactly right.
You don't even have to say it that way, too. You could just value stack it in terms of you get boom, boom, and boom, and this is the value associated with that. And that's the things that people told you that was most valuable to them.
That's right. It's right. And then you have that other piece, which is the confidence to be able to present that in a way that is credible. And you can tell the difference in people's marketing when they have confidence and proof versus when people are being speculative. You know what I mean? You know
how I can tell? And I got to let you go because our hour's up. But I can tell if you read somebody's sales page or you look through their sales presentation or you watch their sales presentation, right? Any of the above, doesn't matter the modality, just in general.
Okay.
The vagueness around the presentation, the vagueness around the sales page, you can tell that they're stretching because they don't really know. In order to know who you sell, you have to first know who you don't sell. In order to know what you're selling, you have to know what you're not selling.
That's right.
And you don't know that so you can see how vague and abstract their sales copy is or their sales message is when they don't know those things. So I can read somebody's sales page and I'm like, you don't know what you're selling. You don't know who you're selling it to.
You're throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it sticks. When you have conviction, you quickly disqualify. You go, only 6 people need to read this.
Yep.
This, that, and the other, right? Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yep. And then you can target those people with your marketing. You can get real skinny on your ad spend, and you can scale that out. So I know in theory it sounds much more simple than it actually is, but it's all a process. And that's why I really recommend to people, when I asked you this before, focus on one at a time. Because if you're trying to do 5 of these funnels or 5 of these sales processes, you're selling 5 or 6 different products at once. What did Steve Jobs do? Came back to Apple. They had 350 products. He said, no. We're taking this down to 10.
That's right.
And just axe a bunch of other initiatives, because it's like, we need to do these 10 things really, really well. So if Steve Jobs with an entire Apple army behind him cuts down to 10 products, you can cut down to 1 yourself, right?
That's a bumper sticker. I love it.
Literally. All right, man. I enjoyed the conversation. Sorry we went a little bit long. I appreciate you, and nothing but the best, my friend. Where can people learn more about you and what you guys are doing at Close Loop?
Yeah, so you can go 2 places. You could go to, you can always find me on LinkedIn. So that's Hilmon Sorey on LinkedIn. You could also go to closeloop.com, CLOZELOOP.com, or check out closeloopuniversity.com. Same
Love
spelling.
It. Awesome, man. I
appreciate you having me here.
All right, buddy. See you, man.
Thank you.
All right. Big thanks to Hilmon for taking time to join me on the show. Don't forget to check out Startup U Mastermind, Startup U like University Mastermind. Connect with other like-minded entrepreneurs and get free additional resources, guidance, and tips about your entrepreneurship, business building journey. GetStartupU.com. That's GetStartupU.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. Leave me a review if I earned it. And I will see you guys in the next one.